So, good evening, everyone, and it is that time of month again for me to do my week, is that time of year again to my May outlook for the 2015 Pacific hurricane season. And right now, things are still been pretty good. Right now, over the last month or so, the El Nino event, excuse me for a minute. Over the last month or so, the El Nino event that I talked a little bit about in my April update has been gaining steam, and though it's a gradual process, however, it is possible that El Nino could be rivaling that of 1997-1982. However, the rate of warming, however, has to increase dramatically within the next few weeks if we are going to get a super El Nino equivalent to 1997. Now, 1982 stayed weak for a while, and I think it's possible 2015 could be a re-1992. We will see what happens. Not 1992, I meant 1982, that's my bad. Furthermore, the PDO signal in the Pacific Decadal Oscillation has remained at fairly close to record levels throughout the spring. In addition, the sea surface temperatures across the East Pacific are well past record levels, or well beyond record territory, to say the least, with the already very warm sea surface temperature region you typically see during hurricane season emerging off the west coast of Mexico, or during the peak of hurricane season. In addition, before we get too carried away, let me squash a few myths. Myth number one, probably the main myth of the night: El Nino years tend to be the most active hurricane seasons on record. That is a myth. If you look at the statistical record, hold on. And if you look at the statistical record, the most active hurricane seasons on record were not super El Nino years, with the exception of 1982. Even that stayed fairly weak for a while, though 1982 is a little bit uncertain. And the reason it is a little bit uncertain is because of the fact that satellite estimates underestimated El Nino, which arguably, in terms of several non-sea surface temperature metrics, is the strongest in the history of mankind ever known. However, 1997 gets the nod as the strongest El Nino in recorded history because its sea surface temperatures were warmer. Then again, 1982 also had the issue of the very warm PDO to also had going for it. 1997 less so, as 1987 was at the tail end of a warm PDO era, while 1982 was at the beginning. 1982, excuse me, was at the beginning. Furthermore, Furthermore, 1985, the Eastern Pacific hurricane season was a neutral year to borderline La Nina and was not the most active on record. That leads about to theories on why it was so active. It was the third most active year on record, had, I believe, 23 systems compared to 1992's 28 and 1982's 24. So, 1984. The 1984 is also a little bit of a mystery, as it was like 1985, a borderline La Nina year. It still got 21 storms in hand, several landfalls, and several landfalls and a very early start, possibly due to the lingering effects from the 1982-83 Super El Nino. Heck, I could even go as far as saying as 1983, which is very borderline second year El Nino. I mean, if you look at it from a non-sea surface temperature standpoint, yeah, the El Nino sort of persisted through the remainder of the year, but the sea surface temperatures of that year fell off the roof of the house and easily reached La Nina territory. So it's a very tricky subject matter. And so, I officially in my records have 1983 considered second year El Nino. I think that El Nino persisted long enough for it to have an obvious effect, since it takes 1 or 2 months for the El Nino to start affecting the base. Saying it usually takes 1 to 2 months after, so that's why I include 1982 in the list of El Nino. Not 1982, excuse me. 1983 in the list of El Nino years. However, you could also even go further back to 1978, which had an El Nino that dissipated by freaking January. And still had, I wish there's 21 though, Herta has 19, so it was still an above average hurricane season. I mean, yes, all these years were in the one PDO year, and I think the consensus is, and I've said several times over the years, that the PDO is the most important factor when it comes to predicting hurricane season. Not El Nino. El Nino may get more attention because El Ninos switch more often than PDOs, but that doesn't mean PDOs is not the number one factor. PDO is the number one factor of all time when it comes to forecasting hurricane seasons in the East Pacific. Hands down. I mean, even then, you can get to some issues. Look at 2013, had 20 storms. 2004, a non-El Nino, El Nino year, Edward and El Nino Modoki, which is also another factor. I'll get to that stuff like that later. I mean, that's in, what, 7 storms different between the two seasons, counting CPAC. I mean, obviously 2004 had the higher race, but you get the point. There are even some more recent examples. 2005 was overall probably a more active hurricane season than 2004. 2005 was after Modoki, El Nino, and quite remarkably occurred when the Atlantic was doing all the tropical waves, and the Atlantic managed to have historic levels of activity not new to mankind. Furthermore, you can also break the El Nino down to Modokis and traditionals. Yes, traditionals help the East Pacific. Yes, Modokis can be bad, but the best thing for the East Pacific generally is when the El Nino starts to wind down. After being powerful, the El Nino starts to wind down, and that Modoki pattern kind of stretches itself, and the Modoki transitions to a traditional. With something related to that. Okay, that's how 1983 and 1982, arguably the two greatest Eastern Pacific hurricane seasons of all time. Well, 2014 was more or less this kind of pattern. And the names are a little tricky, I'll get to that in a sec. I've already discussed 1982-83. In 1987, the strongest El Nino in recorded history had 19 storms. You get the message, I hope, by now. But, now, before I get back to my forecast, I've not forgotten about it. I know I've gotten slightly off track. But I'm still talking about hurricanes, so I don't think it's too bad. For you guys you people if you left to click on this video and watch this powerful video and see this mighty, terrible me torture you with knowledge. Oh, what was I gonna say? This happens to me all the time. Probably why everyone hates my videos, but 1990s. Oh, 1997, that's what I was on. So 1997, I think the reason why is because that's also why El Nino years tend to be late activity starts. Sometimes the El Nino years can slow down the Eastern Pacific seasons, and that's why I think when you start to get some cool water off the coast of South America, and sometimes when the warm waters are not off the coast of the waters off the coast of South America, like in Peru and Ecuador, not super warm. Is sometimes, but when wind shear is low and the PDO is high into it, and the base day is usually El Nino-esque. I mean, you could go back. I mean, let me discuss before we get back to 1997. No, let's discuss 1997 right now. That's what was crucial to 1997 and its extreme levels. Crucial to 1997 is that because of that, October only had one storm. May and June weren't particularly active. The season was pretty much shortened. July and August. Excuse me there. The season was pretty much shortened to July and August. What the heck? Oh. Alright, the season was pretty much shortened to July, August, and September, where the majority of the 19 storms that year observed that year formed. And the reason because of that, warm water off the coast of South America tends to cause rising, and that tends to keep the ITGZ south and towards the equator, where storms cannot form since the Coriolis effect is too weak. In addition, let's also discuss 1983 to 1985 a minute, looking at the MEI and SOI values, even though they were La Nina-ish. I mean, they had some resemblance atmospherically to a warm, neutral, weak El Nino event, in some ways, shape, or form. I mean, I've not fully researched this, so I really can't tell you for sure. But point is, 1997, 1982 are probably my top analogs, along with 1987, 1992, and I might have listed 2014, I can't remember. Obviously, there are some similarities. 1992, like 1992, when El Nino this is arguably a second year El Nino event. Well, 1992 is kind of debatable. I have 1981 to 94, which always says El Nino years. But that's debatable. However, 1992, at this point in time, there were some differences as well. And 1992 for now seems like a different breed. However, 1992 had a lot of quantity over quality a little bit, and I think 2015 could be the same. But with this striking El Nino, when 1992 was a weakening El Nino, there are some differences. I mean, I'll explain the 90s, and they're a bit weird, because 92 and 90 are very questionable as El Ninos. You could argue that they were, but you could also argue that 91 and 94 are the only El Ninos of the early 90s. So it's really tough. And obviously you had the Super Nino in 97, so it's really a tough matter to comment about. I mean, think about it, you had a very remarkable stretch in the 90s with up to 5, maybe you can make a case for 90 and 6, I think. for 1990 and make it 6 out of 9, but we'll call it 5 out of 8 because 1990, I mean, I've seen it listed a couple times, but I do not. None of that, however, by Maurice Marlon Sanders, supports that there was actually an El Nino that year. And before, now that I've done talking about El Nino and the importance of it in history, this is like a mini Eastern Pacific Hurricane history lesson. Let's get right to the actual outlook. I expect 22 named storms, 10 hurricanes, and 5 major hurricanes, and an ace of 154 in 2015 in the East Pacific. There's already some signs of activity, and I might do a video on that if I get time. Maybe I'll just wait for the weekly update video. But in addition, let's also mention a few things. I mean, some of the same tips I gave in my April video still apply. About where, I mean, it hasn't changed much. However, I'd like to put slightly extra emphasis on the southern coast of Mexico. I think the Sinaloa coast. I think I might have mentioned this. I think I mentioned this in my April update video, my April outlook video. But I think the southern coast of Mexico is at a much higher risk climatologically than the northern coast, just because the northern portion of Mexico does not usually get hit during El Nino years. What usually gets hit is like the southern portion of Mexico, like there's some history of this. Or even Central America. We got Tropical Storm Andres in 1997, Tropical Storm Laura, Tropical Depression 2, and the precursor to Hurricane Paul in 1882. That's forced the 3 systems in the last 2 super El Nino events. 2014 had Tropical Storm Boris. Oh, whoops, something weird happened to my video player. I apologize. My whole thing's messed up. But anyway, hopefully it's recorded. If not, so be it. So, did I have anything else to say? I was ranting about Central America. Also, 1992 didn't have anything, but it did have Cecilia originally pretty close to Central America. And it had 2 borderline major hurricanes, Virgil and Winfred, slam into the southern coast of Mexico. Obviously, Baja is at a high risk, and there's some history of after severe hurricane landfall in Baja. There's some mixed history of a return a year or 2 later. I mean, 2013 also had a lot of Baja hits, so we'll see how this plays out. However, because it's El Nino, I'd like to put extra emphasis on the Baja hit. I mean, Hawaii is still at a high risk. But remember that anywhere in the East Pacific, anywhere along the coast of Mexico, including the northwestern coast of Mexico, just because very few Eastern Pacific hurricanes affect land does not mean they can have an impact on the United States population. I mean, the United States or Mexican population. Obviously, as we're going with Hurricane Norbert, these storms can have major consequences on the United States. And this will hopefully wrap up this season outlook video. I've made a text version already. I published it a few days ago. Now I'm publishing it to YouTube. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.